Well, joining me now live in our Lagos studio to discuss more on the impact of the COVID-19 on the economy with a focus on agriculture, the need for improved policy direction, strategy and supply chain management, as well as logistics, is the Chief Executive Officer of Global Investment and Trade Company Limited, Baba Yusuf. Good to have you on the news at SR. Well, now, ECOWAS estimates that COVID-19 pandemic risk food insecurity and nutrition of over 50 million people between June and August this year. What additional level of support now in terms of Nigeria do you expect the federal and state government to adopt in terms of production systems across the value chains?
Thank you very much. I will start with some posers for us here in Nigeria. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria in 2016, in the 1960s, agriculture sector contributed about 85% foreign exchange earnings, about 80% employment, and 90% to the GDP. And then recently, the president of the African Development Bank, Mr. Adesina, mentioned that Africa imports about 75 billion worth of food they can produce. And by 2025, if nothing is done, we may spend about $120 billion importing food. And these posers reflect the situation we are in, and that those conversations with Mr. Adesina took place pre-COVID-19. And then during and post-COVID-19, like you asked, what to be done is to look at the entire value chain and look at the strategy pre-COVID-19 and review. The critical areas to look at are basically, apart from production, value addition, processing, logistics, which includes storage, of course. You will agree with me that about 65% of what is produced in Nigeria gets wasted between the farm to the dining table or from farm to the market. So the first point of consideration is the wastages. So sometimes you may look at it to say, possibly it's not about we are not producing enough, but the waste is too much. We need to interrogate that data about production and about what is wasted. It's very critical. Today, there's a gaping hole within the value chain of storage, of logistics, of value addition. Talking about production also, a lot of traction has been achieved from 2015 to date, especially at the small-scale farmers sector. But the level of insecurity has really adversely impacted those achievements. So you look at a situation of 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. The northern part of Nigeria, you call it the food basket of the nation, is facing the vagaries of insecurity, which has taken out almost 65% of the farmers out of their farms to produce, apart from environmental factors. So it is time for government at federal and state level to critically look at the insecurity situation in the country.
Okay, if I may butt in now, talking about the efforts that we expect from the federal and state governments, the agenda so far we're trying to push in terms of diversifying the economy and putting agriculture in the mainstream is one state, one product. To what extent now in the short term, especially considering that we still have a huge deficit when it comes to research, we have issues when it comes to processing and storage, like you've rightly mentioned. What short-term measures can we now take in terms of building a stronger foundation for increased production at state-by-state level, taking one product at a time, then we can increase production, talk about processing, and then exporting. Then our receipts will increase, and we see a stronger contribution to the GDP.
Yeah, David, we need to look at it from the domestic, and then we look at the international market perspective. First of all, Nigerians have to eat, they have to feed. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll take it from there. Insecurity remains a critical factor. If that is not addressed, there's no production. To take it at least to the level where it was before the issue of insecurity escalated some years ago. And then secondly, I agree with the one state, one food ideology, which is not novel. In the 1960s, the regional governments actually did it. Groundnut for the north, cocoa for west, and palm oil for the east. But what is critical now for us is to look at how we deal with the issue of insecurity, the issue of also support with seedlings. If you are looking at the international market, one of the key failure factors for our farmers and marketers is that pesticides remain issues for products coming out of Nigeria, in the international market. So looking at production, back to the basics, in terms of support given to the small scale and medium to large scale farmers, we have to look at the inputs and the methodologies of production. Thank you, David.
Now, in order to mitigate the shock of the pandemic and its related effects on smallholder farmers and processors, building capacity, providing financial and marketing plan for the next 6 months as the economy gradually reopens, it's critical. But how would you assess now efforts from the CBN, the Ministry of Agriculture Research Institute so far? Do you think we have a clear-cut agenda to support agriculture?
Yeah, thank you. I think to give credit to them, they've done well so far. The 50 billion intervention funds approved by the president and disbursed by the subsidiary of CBN National is ongoing. 6 months is a short-term intervention, and I think the disbursement started not too long ago. So it's early days for us to really fully evaluate the process and the impact of this support to the small-scale farmers. But suffice it to say that so far so good. The disbursement is going on, and we will wait to see, possibly to be safer to say, to evaluate in the next 2 months, giving them possibly a quarter to see the full implementation and how it goes.
So by the end of the third quarter, then we can have a little bit of assessment. Well, let's now talk about investment in technology. This cuts across transportation of food products, irrigation, processing capacity, and also stabilizing pricing. To what extent now do you think we need more public-private partnerships to drive growth in these areas?
Well, the truth is what you said cannot be overemphasized. The public-private partnership is way to go. It has been an evolving situation for us in Nigeria. I think COVID-19 has made it more imperative that government focuses on that, supports the private initiatives that are coming on board to seek for enablement from government in terms of logistics, in terms of even the production we were talking about earlier on, greenhouses, logistics value chain, cold chain, and what I call the platforms, logistics platforms at the economic gateways. That's the airports and the maritime, the seaport and the airports. Very critical. There's a gaping hole there. And if we are looking at pushing the ticket for agriculture to add more value to the GDP, then these facilities and infrastructure must be in place. And the only way it is possible is to get the private sector to come in with huge investments to support this initiative.
And what's your forecast now, looking at our rainfall pattern as well, plans for the wet season and the dry season? Do you think we're going to see an increase in food production, an increase in terms of our export base? What's your forecast?
The COVID-19 pandemic is still on, so I don't see any significant increase in production. One, in terms of the rain, you notice the rain patterns have not been so encouraging this year. And then secondly, because of the restrictions of movement during COVID-19, there haven't been much farming activities. Thirdly, critical also, like we mentioned earlier, the security situation has also not been, encouraging for farmers to go out there and produce. So by and large, for this year, it's not going. The picture is not so fantastic in terms of improved yields. But then I think the lag time we are having now, the message is for us to use it as an opportunity to rejig our strategies and then put things in place post-COVID-19.
Thank you very much for your contribution on the show this morning. Bye-bye, Yusuf.
Thank you.